Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to On the Brightline podcast, Tales from Recovering Food Addicts from the perspective of a physician, a therapist, and an off-the-wall storyteller. We are not affiliated or endorsed by Brightline Eating, and all content presented in this podcast represents our personal opinions and does not represent medical, nutritional, or psychological professional advice. We are going to cover many topics, but we'll be speaking directly from our journey using the Brightline Eating Solution by Susan Pierce Thompson. First, let me introduce Bonny DO. Bonny is a family medicine physician who ran a female-centric boutique practice for many years in Dallas, Texas. She was the first migrant of our crew to the Pacific Northwest and the trailblazer of our journey with Brightline Eating. Next, let me introduce Robin Powell, LCSW. She's a licensed clinical social worker who specializes in the therapy of grief and loss. She completed the trifecta when she moved to the Pacific Northwest a little over a year ago. And finally, I'm Meagan McDonald, MSHC. I have a master's in healthcare communication. I enjoy telling stories and using social media. You may find me on Instagram, TikTok, and the like. So we're gonna start off with Bonny right now, and she's gonna give you a little intro to herself and her journey. Bonny?
Well, hello. I am a family practice physician, as Meagan said. I practiced for over 20 years in private practice, in the later phases with a special attention to women's health and thyroid disease. I definitely treated a lot of obesity in my practice and, retrospectively realized that the advice I gave was actually not very helpful, given what I've learned now about Brightline Eating. I moved to administrative role about 8 years ago, and now sit a lot, which also affected my weight and health, and was part of what helped bring me to Brightline Eating in the last few years. I'm in my mid-50s. I have 2 grown children. I have 3 grandchildren. I have struggled with weight and body image all my life, and I come from a family with substance abuse and eating disorders of all kinds. So that's the baseline of how I come into Brightline Eating.
Awesome. Robin?
Okay, I'm Robin Powell, licensed clinical social worker. I'm a psychotherapist in private practice, and I'm licensed in both Texas and Washington. I've known Bonny since 1985, and I think I met Meagan in like 2008. 2010, was
Sorry.
it?
Yes, it was.
When we were all working in an office together in Bonny's office. And I've probably always been interested in the psychology behind eating issues and food addiction. I come from a family that, half of the family is super skinny and half of the family struggles with high blood pressure, being pre-diabetic, weight and joint issues. And I think I started working with clients that were struggling with, anxiety, depression, but also eating issues. And they all wanted, they wanted the magic cure, the magic bullet, they wanted the magic diet that would fix it all. And through my work, I realized that it's we all know what we should or shouldn't put in our mouth. It's why am I putting this stuff in my mouth? And so I think that for me that and watching Bonny and Meagan on their journey really helped me realize the power that this has to change lives for people.
Yeah, completely agreed. So I have been overweight since puberty, massively overweight the majority of my life. I think what I will admit is my highest is 326 pounds, but I know I was higher than that. I just probably won't admit to being higher than that.
Yeah.
When I started the BLE journey, I was at 308, so that's kind of marked where my mark began for this journey. But I met Bonny in 2000. probably 2008, 2009, I was managing Starbucks, and she was one of my customers. And she came in one day, and she was really stressed out. And I was like, "Hey, Bonnie, what's going on?" She was like, "My front desk is not going to be manned, and I have patients today." And she was starting a brand new practice, and I had answered phones before and could be a friendly face, so I decided to offer my services, and that's kind of how our relationship began. So I managed Bonnie's practice for 7 years. And we went on a health journey many times over together.
Yes, we did.
We were
Very exercise-based.
Exercise-based health journey. We both did triathlon. Robin did triathlons with us too. We all did triathlons at one point. And I think that's really what my focus was on, was exercising the weight away, which never worked. It never worked. Currently where I am is about 85 pounds down, and this is almost the smallest that I ever was when we were doing triathlon, and I was doing 2-a-days. So that's pretty significant as far as this has been a completely different journey for me doing Bright Line Eating. And so that's where I'm at. Just up and down. I didn't say that I have 2 young children, so I have an 8-year-old and a 3-year-old. So being a young mom, obviously struggling with your weight is a common thread amongst a lot of young moms, and finding time to be a mom, worry about your health, and all that kind of stuff is definitely a perspective that I can bring into this conversation. So I don't know, did we miss anything on our introductions as far as how we come to this? We've known each other, Bonnie and Robin have known each other a lot longer, but I came to the picture 2009, 2010, so we've all known each other for about that long. So we started in Dallas, Texas, and now we all live in the Pacific Northwest.
Yes, we do.
Happily.
So the other thing that we were going to talk about is the susceptibility scale, and where you rate on the susceptibility scale if you've taken the quiz.
So the susceptibility scale, just for those who might not know about Bright Line Eating, and I'll just tell you, Bright Line Eating is a trademarked program started by Dr. Susan Pierce Thompson.
BrightLineEating.com.
There you go, brightlineeating.com if you want to find out more information. Again, we are not endorsed by them nor endorse them, but this is the program we're following. So if you want more information about that, there's a book, there's a website, it's awesome. But within that, Susan Pierce Thompson created a susceptibility scale, which basically assesses how susceptible you are to food addiction. And there's just a 1 to 10 scale, and I rate a 10. And so it's interesting because Meagan discussed that she's come from really what we call coming from large numbers. I've never been in very large numbers. The most that I've lost, and I'm now in maintenance on Bright Line Eating, is about 75 pounds. So compared to what Meagan has dealt with, not so much. But my food thoughts and my food obsession.
75 pounds is significant. Let's
yes.
not skip
it's
over
not
that.
minimized.
It's
It's not
definitely is.
10.
No, for sure.
75 pounds is significant.
It's a thing. But my addiction to food manifested with just constant food chatter, constant food thoughts. I now work from home, sitting at the computer, and I would just get up every hour and have a snack. And even if they were really tiny snacks, eventually those snacks added up to quite a few calories.
Little treat.
And so, so when I took the susceptibility scale, I came out at a 10. And that really means that I have a severe food addiction, and it's not going to be controlled by just controlling portions. I actually went and saw a therapist before I learned about Bright Line Eating, and one of the main concerns I had when I went to the therapist was I keep getting up and getting snacks. I don't want to be doing that. I know it's not good for me, and I don't know how to stop. And all she could say was, why do you think you're doing that? And I'm like, I don't know.
That's why I'm here.
Like some tools,
And the
please.
reality is most people don't understand the food addiction because we all eat food. And so it seems like that's not something you could be addicted to. And this is obviously something that therapists had not been exposed to. And again, as a physician, I had not been exposed to that. And I kind of cringe now when I think about all the patients that I supported by telling them what kinds of food to eat, cut your carbs, keep your carbs to this amount, count your calories, exercise. These were things I was taught in medical school. And, for somebody who's a 10 on the susceptibility scale, these things don't work. This is like
Yeah.
telling an alcoholic, hey, you know what you need to do is just drink one drink a day.
Right.
And that's
Right.
going to really
It'll
help
be
control
fine.
your alcoholism. And it really doesn't. So, yeah. So I'm a 10. And what we know is that I will always be a 10, right? So I'm not having food thoughts all the time now that I'm in maintenance. But I know that if I begin eating sugar and flour again, I will revert right back to that behavior pattern.
Have you taken this acceptability
I
scale?
have. It's been a while. I think I'm like a 2.
Of course. Robin's a 2, guys.
Sorry. Sorry for being a 2. I like to apologize now. But for me, I know when stress hits my life, right? That's when that food chatter comes in of, I deserve a treat. This will comfort me. This will make me feel better. And even though all the research shows that food actually does nothing to change your mood, which nobody wants to hear. Every time I tell my clients that, they absolutely hate me for sharing that little detail. But it's become so indoctrinated in our society, the way we view food as equaling comfort, soothing, something we deserve, as opposed to something that keeps us alive.
I believe there's a fast food burger chain who had "You deserve a break today"
Right.
as their mantra. We'll not mention
I
that.
think you're correct. I think you are
Yeah, I think the
correct.
media really promotes and encourages us to use food and alcohol to comfort ourselves.
Exactly.
And it's definitely indoctrinated into us from an early age.
Sure, because it's quick, it's easy. I mean, how many times as a kid, I can think of a million times that my mom said, "Oh, well, you got an A on the test, have a cookie."
Yeah.
"Oh, you had a bad day, have a cookie." Right? And it just becomes part of our culture and our language of, enabling each other. Right?
Yeah.
"Oh, you look cute. Oh, you don't need to lose any weight. Go ahead. Oh, come on, live a little."
Yep. So I am a 9. I'm probably a 10, but when I took it, I scored 9. And I think that mine has always been that food was a comfort, but it was also a reward. And it's really interesting because my parents now have both read and joined the Bright Line Eating movement and have both lost all their excess weight, which is wonderful and awesome. But coming from a family that was not severely overweight, me being the only one that was overweight, I never really understood why me. There was always that feeling of like, why me? Why am I the only one?
Why am I different?
Why am I different than them? Absolutely. But also just that my mom's love language is food. And she asked me, she's like, did we contribute to this? And I said, I think that because your love language is food, you were speaking to me in the language that and she has a food blog, guys. Like, this is her love language. She loves to cook. She loves to, she loves to be able to serve people in that way. And so I think that she did what she knew what she could do with the things that she knew how to do when I was growing up. And because of, who I was and, trauma and all that kind of stuff, I used food for comfort. And it just got, obviously out of control as I've been overweight for the majority of my life. So I think for me, it's funny because I don't identify as much with, I do think that I'm a food addict as far as like the foods that I crave. I've never had like binge, like what I consider like binging problems,
Right.
which there's a lot of people that do. It's just not something I've ever experienced. It was more just eating the wrong kinds of foods in larger quantities. That was what kept me overweight for a long time.
That's so interesting that your mom, her love language is food, and that's your connection with your weight, where my mom worried about our weight because she had an eating disorder of being concerned about her weight, and shared that with us from a very early age. As a toddler, our thighs were too fat. If you could put your knees together and couldn't see light between your thighs, you were overweight. And I remember at like 7 or 8 putting my knees together and thinking,
Those
I'm already overweight, and so she was very restricting in our food, not to be mean or cruel, but she was terrified. Our father was overweight. She was terrified that we were going to become overweight, which for her was just the worst thing.
Yeah.
And so in the restrictive environment that I grew up in, I did binge. I never purged or anything like that. And I know that's a problem for many people with similar upbringing, but I definitely binged. I hid the binges. I mean, my most famous experience was I was selling the chocolate bars for the softball team, and I
Oh,
got
right.
50 chocolate bars, and I was supposed to sell them, and I put them in the bottom drawer of my dresser, and every night I ate 3 or 4.
Right.
And so pretty quickly I'd eaten them all, and I had
Right.
to go to my mother and ask for $50, which
Right.
back in the 80s was a lot of money.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
yeah, so it's interesting, right, that we both kind of come to that, but from, when our parents might ask, oh my gosh, did I do this to you?
Yeah.
I mean, it just happens, and it's culturally, probably in every family, there is weirdness about food, and so, I mean, they did the best they could, right?
And
And
I
for
think-
the right reasons.
Right.
Yes.
And I think
Yeah.
there's a larger discussion about addiction here. That
Yeah.
it's that
Yes.
if you are prone to addiction in general, because I do identify as a food addict, as I know you do as well,
Yeah.
Bonnie. Like there's being prone to addiction that is
Yeah.
genetic, right? Like
Absolutely.
it's something. I mean, I'm not a medical professional, but I think that there is evidence that
Absolutely.
people are prone to addiction, and that
Sure.
it just, it can be food, it can be alcohol, it can be drugs, it can
Shopping,
be, shopping, sex,
yeah.
whatever. It can be
Yeah.
all those
Yeah.
things. So, I definitely don't fault my parents. I don't blame them. I appreciate them being on this journey with me and
Yeah.
being supportive. They've always been supportive. I will also say that. I know lots of people have horrible stories about the way that their parents treated them as a child being overweight. My parents never treated me any differently, and I really appreciate that. They were always very encouraging and supportive. So, any more thoughts on? Okay.
So I think our next topic
Yeah.
is, how did you
How'd
find
you find out about
BLE?
BLE? Sorry, Bonnie, because you started the movement between our groups, so I want to know how you how you found out about BLE. I would
Yeah,
like to hear
so
about
my
that.
sister and I both struggle with weight, and I remember it's been over 2 years now that my sister sent me a food freedom video, which are some videos that Dr. Thompson sends out to kind of introduce people to what bright line eating is. And I remember watching the video and thinking, this kind of makes sense to me as a physician, but like, man, I could never give up sugar and alcohol, like
Right.
hard no for me. But
Right.
yeah, you go do that. That would be so great for you
So
to do
great for
that.
other people. Right. For other people.
And then my sister started on the program, and so I went and got the book, and I read the book, and I just had like so many aha moments as a physician, as a scientist, with my understanding of the brain, of biochemistry. It really hit me in every way. I had been to that therapist to ask, why am I snacking? She couldn't give me an answer, and this book gave me the exact answer, why the addictive pathways in my brain were leading me to a subconscious need to come back to those snacks, even though my frontal lobe was saying, this is not good for you, you don't want to do this. And
Yeah.
so I understood, especially having taken care of patients with alcoholism and drug addiction, I can totally understand, and I empathized with those people, understanding, patients that say they take cocaine for the first time, and that's all they think about because of the way their brain handles that addiction, right? And it finally connected with me that that's what was happening in my brain with food. And I was just able to come to a point of acceptance that if I could embark on a program to remove sugar, flour, and honestly alcohol from my system, that I could possibly be free of those obsessive addictive thoughts after I went through a period of withdrawal, which is what happened. So I'm so grateful that I don't know, took that leap of faith or whatever, but I think it's because the science, I needed to understand the why. I mean, we've all been on a million different diets. Every book that promises if you just, you eat the cabbage for a week and then drink the grapefruit juice, I don't know, you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
whatever.
Yeah.
Like, there's all these diets, like if you just do this, it'll be great.
Magic.
Yeah, and I know as a physician, a scientist, right, that there's a 99% recidivism rate of all diet programs.
Wait.
Yeah.
Recidivism? What does that mean?
Relapse.
Okay.
Yeah. Meaning 99% of people that go on any kind of diet across the board, from Weight Watchers, Jenny Craig, whatever, they're all good programs. They all help control calories. There's nothing bad about them, but people aren't able to sustain them. And now I understand, and I understood after reading the book and watching that video, right, that the reason is because their brain's addicted. And so it's actually kind of amazing that people stay on these diets as long as they do, because it takes incredible willpower, again, to just white knuckle it through an addiction and just, avoid things. And especially because food is something we have to eat every day, right, to sustain ourselves. I mean, it's kind of like if you were if you're an alcoholic and then you just had to live in a bar all day and you needed to drink once a day or 3 times a day, but not drink excessively. I mean, who could do that if you were an alcoholic, right? So Yeah, so for me, that's how I came to it. I mean, the science. I mean, I had to have the why. Some
Yeah.
people just like say,
Yeah.
just tell me what to do and I'll do it.
Yeah.
For me, I need to know the why.
Okay.
The science behind
Ramen.
I loved watching Bonnie go on that BLE journey. And I can remember some of those early conversations where it was really starting to click for you. And I am also a why person. You know, I started out as a science major. And so the why, the science behind it is really important to me. And when I had a really nasty surgery that I had some medical complications with, and couldn't exercise, couldn't move, could barely even walk across the room. And so, of course, food kind of became a comfort to me, and I put on about 35 pounds. And being willing to change how I was eating and change my relationship with food was the only way that I was able to let go of that weight, right? And starting to make peace with my why, with my chatter of, you know, what I had been using to comfort myself at a time when everything that I used to use to comfort myself was gone.
So Bonnie and Clay, Bonnie's husband is Clay, just so everyone knows. He's the man in the booth. Started doing BLE, and they told me about it, and I was like, y'all are nuts. Actually, my first thought was, oh, this is another thing that Bonnie's doing.
Right.
Because we had been through many things together. So I was like, oh, Bonnie's doing another diet. Okay, we'll see how long this lasts. And when she told me
Let me interrupt.
I
did.
No, you're fine.
I mean, one of the things I did was the juicing, which is hilarious.
Yes,
We juiced all of our food.
Yes, I remember the juicing.
Which is loaded with sugar. So
Horrible. Anyway, so because we've known each other for a while and we've been on this weight journey together, it was like, okay, here's another thing, just another thing that she's doing. And it was, in my mind, I said, nope, too restrictive, can't do it. No way. So we actually went, the three of us went on a trip to Victoria. And I said, okay, I'll see it. Let me see it in action. I don't know that I've even told you this. Have I told you? No. I just was like, let me see it in action. And I watched the way that you ate that weekend, when we were away. And I was like, okay, well, it's not that she's not eating, you know, and I still wanted to have my food like that weekend because I was not ready at that point to do it. I was like, I still wanted to have my food and have my fun and my, you know, have my alcohol that we were, you know, I wanted those things. Yeah. But I saw what you were doing and I realized that, okay, it's not as bad as I thought it was, right? So the catalyst for me was at the end of November of last year, 2022. I got some horrible lab results back. And I'm 42 now. I didn't say how old I am, but I'm 42 now. And I was 41 at the time, thinking I have little kids. And knowing how bad the labs were, I was like, I'm going to die. And I'm not going to survive to see my kids grow up and get married and all this kind of stuff if I don't change my life. And so that was really just kind of scared me straight. And so thankfully, you know, at that point I had already kind of been introduced by you to it. And, you know, I think I read the book in like a weekend because I had started the book and I was like, no, this is weird. Like, I'm not going to do this. But then like I read the book in a weekend and then like, I was like, today's my day one. And I just, you know, I did it. And so that's how I came to it. But it was very reluctantly because I at first was like, there's no way. I was like, there's no way.
I remember coming and staying up here when I first got to Washington, and I remember thinking, oh, like I'm gonna be so hungry, eating the way Bonnie and Clay eat, you know. And I was staying with them for 2 weeks, and I was like, wow, you know, I'm not at all hungry, and that absolutely shocked me.
Yeah, the vegetable volume, and we'll talk a lot more
as
we go through some more podcasts, right? But the vegetable volume is like so crazy. I mean, I never ate vegetables. And you know how parents are supposed to make their kids eat vegetables? I didn't because we didn't. I mean, we just didn't. We had a meat and a starch, and now they're in a bread. I don't know, whatever. But yeah, I mean, there's so much food. It is so much food. It's just so much healthy food. It's a whole different thing.
For sure. Yeah. So last topic that we're going to talk about today is what's your current relationship with BLE? Where are you at today?
So I've been in maintenance since February of last year, I think, right? Yeah.
I'm not counting your days. I don't know.
I know, right? I was a very slow loser. I know, Megan, you've lost weight much more rapidly on the program, and I'm short. Just you guys can't see on the, through the microphone, but I'm only 5'1.5". So I'm, when you're a little tinier, you just really actually don't need as many calories, which is kind of a bummer because on the program, once you reach maintenance, you're supposed to be able to do some ads, and I really wasn't able to add very much, which made me sad. But I have made peace with that. I still struggle a little bit with my quantities when I get stressed. I have not broken my lines directly with, alcohol or flour or sugar. I definitely have had some out to eat experiences where probably there's a sugar in a sauce, but I don't, obviously haven't had sweets or any of those kind of things. Some people are able to experiment with adding some of those things. My husband Clay has been able to, on occasion, like once a year, have something, an actual sweet, and it just literally doesn't derail him at all. Because I am a 10, I know that if I have some real sugar, it's going to put me right back on that path, and I just know that I can't do that. I remember when I was early in the program, and I thought, I wasn't an alcoholic, but I'm going to say a daily drink was a big part of my stress relieving life in such an unhealthy way. And I remember thinking, oh, well, when I'm at maintenance, I'm going to have some drinks every now and then because I'll be able to do that, right?
Yeah.
I remember on our trip you saying that. You're
Yeah,
like, I might have drinks.
Yeah,
when
I
we're
might.
going."
Yeah, I might.
Yeah.
And I think that was just a little wishful thinking or denial or whatever. But what's so interesting is I really don't crave those things anymore. I don't have food. I could be in the middle of I went to a place with a specialty donut shop, and literally the whole place was filled with beautifully decorated and amazingly delicious looking donuts, and it did not even smell like a food place for me, which is so interesting. And I'm so grateful. I am so eternally grateful that my food chatter is down. It's been life-changing, and aside from the weight loss and the improved health and the decreased pain and all the things that came with losing that weight and changing my food, I would say I feel really great to be in maintenance, but I still need to be pretty vigilant because I'm still a 10. And again, I just went through a very stressful life experience last week, and I definitely ooched on my quantities. Took a little bit more than my weighted food and stopped weighing myself subconsciously because I didn't want to know what the consequence was. So I think the maintenance journey is a continued project. It's not like my fantasies of losing weight or being on a diet through my whole life. Like, if you just get to this poundage,
Right.
if I weigh this
magic
amount,
number.
everything's going to be great. My life will be perfect. Nope, it's just the same thing. You get to maintenance and then you just keep working the program. So
I think that's a great way of saying it, right, is that you learn the skills, but you have to accept that when the bumps in life happen, and they will always happen, that you have to have a plan to manage those bumps. And to me, that's what BLE provides. It provides that structure, the accountability, the community to help navigate those. That it's not, you're not reinventing the wheel. You're not, on this journey alone. That it can be a shared experience that I think is something that a lot of people have never had. And for me, that's what having, you guys on the program has helped provide me, that community I can remember being somewhere and like calling you on the phone and going, I'm sitting in the parking lot of a restaurant and I need you to talk me down off the ledge and tell me why, remind me why I don't want to eat this. I said I didn't want to eat this, right? And so for me, I think that's the beauty of, not just the BLE stuff, but of the community that we have together.
Yeah, I think accountability is huge. I will say that that's probably one of the reasons why I have been as successful with this program, other than there is a lot of science behind why totally abstaining from sugar and flour makes sense and does heal your brain. As far as from an addiction perspective, so back to the question, which is where am I at today with BLE? So I started BLE November 30th of 2022, and I have now been bright for 215 days, something like that now. Yep. I've kept all my lines. the term crystal vase is what the community uses for people who have kept their lines during, since they started. So I'm definitely proud of that, but I also am in the place of realization of like life is going to get lifey at some point, and that, things might change, and that, I may never, perfection isn't necessarily the goal. That's not what the goal is. So I started, I guess I'm kind of unusual, like Bonnie and I have talked about this, that I have like literally beginning labs, like labs that I like got just at the very start of my journey. And then I've had them at 3-month intervals in between. And we'll talk about that more later, but that everything has, there's been market improvement. I think that that's probably an understatement. It's been pretty miraculous and significant, the improvement that I've had. Yeah. Obviously I've lost a significant amount of weight. 85 pounds is a lot of weight, but I have, I have a goal range, and so I'm about halfway there, maybe a little less now, and maybe a little over halfway there, which is exciting. But I think that to me, it's not, even now, it's like, it's not necessarily about the number on the scale. It's about my health and like feeling lovely most days and having the energy to be active. And that's what I currently am enjoying about BLE. And I will say accountability and community is such a huge part of this program, and that, not that you can't do it without. I think you can buy the book, get the book from the library. You don't have to be part of the membership, quote unquote, to be successful. But I think that is a huge piece of it, is finding a community that you can be accountable to, and living this life. And I think that having the connection and people that understand what you're going through is also, a huge, important part of this program. So I will say that. And I think that for today, that's all that we're going to talk about.
There we go.
Stay tuned. Many more episodes to come, many more topics to come. But we hope you guys enjoyed our discussion today.